So, first of all, I would like to say thank you for having us here, and thanks a lot for Viktor Matveyev and Leonid Bezrukov, who helped a lot to find the date and define the agenda, and also Christian Spiering, who helped a lot and got in touch with many of you to define the agenda and shape it in a way. I think it is the whole tour through Ask the Department of Physics in Europe and in Russia, and that's great. Great. And also thank you to Gennady and Natasha, who helped a lot to bring us here. So my duty is to walk you through the funding agency land in Europe and perhaps a little bit Russia, but not too much. It's the way from ApPEG via ASPERA to ApPEG again. And all these abbreviations I will try to explain in a minute. And at the end I have some ideas put together which I will call the purpose of the meeting today. So what are we going to have at the end when we all go home at the end? So, a quick tour in astroparticle physics, European coordination. That means astroparticle physics, it's a new field of science, and it emerged about 10 years ago in funding agency land. It's actually even older. This year we have the 100 years anniversary of the discovery of cosmic rays, and people were dealing with finding out what are cosmic rays for now 100 years, so it's still unclear. So, but many other subfields came on board, and this is what we call now astroparticle physics. And it's in the intersection between astrophysics, particle physics, nuclear physics, and cosmology, just for those of you who are not physicists in the room. Well, when you look into established fields of science like nuclear physics or astrophysics, you find out that all these established fields have large infrastructures in Europe or somewhere in the world. When you are an astrophysicist and you need a large telescope in Europe, you knock on the door of ESO, for example. The same you do when you are in nuclear physics. You have your experiment at JINR, DESY, or JINR, or somewhere else in the world. You find your place. Same is true for particle physics at CERN and for space science in Europe and ESA. But in astroparticle physics, it's a special situation. We don't have such a host institution, so it's all more or less free-flying or going by networking of institutions or scientists on all kinds of levels. So this is something very particular for this field. So in 2001, funding agencies came together for the first time in Europe and discussed what to do. They decided to coordinate their activities. So they funded ApPEG. ApPEG stands for Astroparticle Physics European Coordination. And after a short discussion, an MOU was set up and 5 agencies signed, and then others came on board during the time. And after a while, getting together 2 times a year, people said, oh, something is missing. We come together and discuss, but we need a kind of working level. And at that time, it was a fortune that the European Commission said, yes, that's something we want to have in our program. They invented the so-called ARANET program. That is funding for national funding agencies to get together and work together and discuss together to somehow converge in a way that we have European programs and not a bunch of national programs. So this is the time when ASPERA was born. So it was maybe Stavros and me who set up this whole thing or pushed the others to propose for this money. And ASPERA is the Astroparticle Physics ARANET, which is a project funded by the European Commission. The project, as you know, has a defined beginning and defined end. So it's something that cannot stand forever. We were able to get funded 2 times, 6.5 years in total. And I will come back to this point in a second. We have to invent something new. That was the duty for the second time getting funding from the European Commission. This is what we now call the new ApPEG, which is the ASPERA Physics European Consortium. So please note the difference between the first ApPEG, coordination, and here's consortium. Not a minor detail, it's important. So, ASPERA. So what we have done during the first 3 years, it is mainly the exchange of information. We have derived the status and the methodology and the funding of ASPERA physics in Europe. We created the first European roadmap in ASPERA physics, and we had the first common call, which was a very interesting endeavor because some of our funding agencies had no experience with a call at all. So, so it was a slow move into this business, but now we are very used to common calls. You have already heard we have now the third call, which happened in ASPERA 2. It's second in ASPERA 2, where we had to promise to make a common action plan. So when you have a roadmap, it's great, but you have to make plans on how to make these projects possible. You need standards and things like that. You have to convince others that these projects are really worth to spend a lot of money, the expensive projects. So we did more common calls, and all these calls are somewhat directed towards large infrastructures that are on the roadmap. So that's the goal, and it's R&D money on the way to build these projects. So extension of the network was an issue, the internationalization, so there was the OECD Global Science Forum on ASPERA Physics, just to mention a few things. And a major topic is within second ASPERA to create a sustainable future structure. So European Union said, you got the money to learn how to walk, and now you have to stand on your own feet. Make it possible that you can continue on your own. So this was ASPERA at the very beginning. We were 17 partners from 12 countries in 2006. So quite some partners. But in the meantime, we got new friends. So Russia, for example, joined in 2011. This is a picture from the signing ceremony we had in Hamburg last year. So when Chamber and Wagner were congratulating each other for signing the associate agreement, in the back you see Victor Matveyev, a colleague of mine, and myself. And so we were very happy to get this new partner. And, it's really was a fast track towards participation in the third call in 2012, so this year. And thanks a lot to Alexander Sharov, who organized the Russian contribution to this call. And it's a success. So this shows the full success. In 2012, we have now 24 partners from 19 countries. So this is really a visible extension of the network, I would say. Here, it's a bit difficult to read, but here you see the full picture of what happened in Europe during the last 11 years. ApPEG old is a bit, where you see the coordinating body ApPEG old. Wouldn't see it on the view on the screen. You see the EU funding when it came in for ASPERA and ASPERA 2, and our hope is to get also funded within the new program, EU Horizon 2020 program. We already had discussions that they like to spend some money for us because we are so successful. And there's a new ApPEG which started with a new ApPEG MOU that was signed in the middle of this year. With this MOU, we finished the existence of the ApPEG old, which was founded in 2001. So it's convergence, of course, because we were discussing many years what is ApPEG and what is ASPERA, and I'm very glad that we come to the final end. The new ApPEG is the one thing that we will have at the end, and that's perfect. No more discussions on what is what. So, concerning the new ApPEG, we have set up an MOU within ASPERA. This was discussed during many months, and I think it's really great. And All these slides have CA, CNRS from France, DESY and DESY from Germany, from the Netherlands, FWO from Belgium, CSF from Croatia, Romania, Italy, Poland, Ireland, UK. They all have signed this document and are partners of it. And we have some candidates. I heard from Austria that they are really willing to sign, Chip from Switzerland and NIH from Hungary, and perhaps some others, but Stavros may add his talk who else is coming on his board. So here's a chart of the organization of the new ApPEG. You see on top the decision-making level formed by a General Assembly and the chair of the General Assembly. All the partners that have signed the MOU are sitting in this General Assembly or have a seat in it. And we may also invite observers, of course. It's a general tradition, I would say. Then we have a scientific advisory committee assigned to us. Of course, the funding agencies, when they are discussing issues on funding for science, they need such a board, experts. And below that, there is the working level. So the mistake we made during the first creation of ApPEG is now not repeated. We have a functioning working level, or it should be functioning. And it's organized in the way that we have a joint secretariat where the work to be done is discussed, and it is headed by the General Secretary. So the frontmen to the outside world is a combination of the chair of the General Assembly and the General Secretary, I would say. Or this is at least my idea, how we should work. And the work itself is structured in 3 functional centers in the moment. So there is some space left to the left side of the slide. So if somebody has intentions to come up with an additional functional center, it's easy to implement in this view graph. So you see 3 functional centers that exist for the moment. One is will be created at DESY, my office. Another one will be created at ENFM, at the Gran Sassola, and the third one at APC. Here I will stop introducing you to the work of the functional centers, because this is covered by Stavros' talk. And he will walk you through all these topics, what these functional centers are doing. Is it right? Yeah. Okay, then I saved some time. So, the idea of having a new ApPEG developed from the task of ASPERA 2 to develop a sustainable structure for the future astronautical physics for integration. So what we did is define the structure, develop an MOU, convince partners to sign. As I've shown you, many were convinced and signed it already, and start functioning. This will happen by the start of next year, or the first meeting of the General Assembly will happen in November this year to start discussing. So let's make the move to the second part of my talk, which will be very short. It is the purpose of the meeting. For me, it's important to understand how do we continue with our strategic partnership with Russia. So is there a way, or what is the best way to include you in the new ApPEG structure? So as we already heard, there are aspects or partners which may come on board as real partners and others as observers, and that's what we have to discuss. But it's of course your choice how you want to enter the new ApPEG. So, and for many hours the following, we will of course listen to presentations on opportunities in science for collaboration, astroparticle physics R&D projects, and in large particle physics infrastructure. So, and then, okay, the third point is actually related to the first point. Discuss and define relationship with existing transnational organizations. We are not only in Russia, we are at JINR, and for us it looks that JINR is comparable to CERN, ESO, and ESA, And there we have to define a way of how to include them into the new structure. And that's my hope that we learn something about this. So, thank you for your attention, and as I always say,
Thank you very much. Do anybody wants to ask questions to you? By the way, what would be the difference between somehow connections of funding agency or international organizations? Is there any difference of such a way? Or?
It's different in all countries. In many countries we have a different way of dealing together. Or then organizations often belong to funding agencies, or because funding is involved. But often you have a situation where an organization has a board where all the funding agencies providing the funding to this organization are coming together to discuss what is the budget and what is...
Maybe ask us more precisely. For example, you mentioned DESY and, for example, CERN. They're different in stature, but DESY is a national organization.
Yes.
But CERN international, so what would be the difference? So, for example, I ask you not just without any purpose, but be considering, for example, how attitude JINR could have to such a new ApPEG organization.
I'm a bit biased by the definitions of the European Commission, I must confess. In the European context, we have transnational organizations which can participate in these networks of funding agencies, like CERN is accepted, ESA is accepted, and ESO is accepted. So I think if JINR would try to become a partner in such an endeavor, it will be accepted by the European Commission. But here in our case, we can have our own definitions. And if some country decides the organization taking part in ApPEG, for example, should be a large organization, it's a decision. And sometimes we have situations where organizations take part in such a network on behalf of a ministry or funding agency. It's also possible. But ministries are always lean. They don't have too many people that can go out and be members in 30, 50 committees. And then they say, hey, DESY, do it for us. Or,
Thank you, I got it. Thank you. Do anybody want to? Пожалуйста. Alexander. Sharon.
What is your vision of, it's okay, maybe. What is your vision of the collective membership in the ApPEG program and ApPEG? Because as I have mentioned in my presentation, we are considering opportunity to arrange collective membership in the ApPEG, because as to RFBR, it's only and just a funding agency, and the extensive part of the activity of ASPERA are collective, are scientific events like workshops, seminars, which are out of interest for us, for RFBR. Therefore, it's important. We are not obliged and we are not able to inform, to be involved in providing and distributing information about ASPERA scientific events, like I mentioned. Therefore, it's important for us to know if we invite into the collective membership poor scientific organizations like Kurchatov Institute, like institutes of the Russian Academy of Sciences, the interest of the academic society, local Russian academic society, will be much greater, and they will know quite well what they get from the contacts with ASPERA and participating in the ASPERA scientific events, not only ASPERA Co.
Let me think a few seconds before I answer your question. In the ApPEG MAU, stated who can be partner of ApPEG. And the only limitation is that it should be a legal entity, not a professor of a university or a group of students. So this is the only limitation. How to organize collective participation, it's actually the duty of the different states or communities in the states.
But the charter of the organization, the agreement on ApPEG, doesn't provide that kind of form of participation, collective membership, collective partnership.
Perhaps Samos can give you some answer.
I mean, what Thomas says is absolutely correct. I mean, the charter permits essentially, for instance, let me take an example of Germany, which I know well. I mean, you have, for instance, you have Max Planck, you have Helmholtz, you have DFG, you have a few organizations funding research. Nevertheless, Germany decided to participate through DESY. One. So the wish of APPEG is not to have too many people around the table, because then it becomes a little bit chaotic. We are already, I don't know, 24. So the recommendations towards countries are that they don't come with all the agencies they created in their, but one or two. Or some countries decide on their own. So this is a negotiation to be made between the possibility by the charters to have as many as you prove that they are funding. They have also national activities at the national level, not simply, let's say, Yakutsk or university, but having a national activity. And then once they have that, they could, but they are discouraged if there are too many. So we'll have to discuss this, I think. And also the same thing happens about that you can enter as a partner. CERN, although it gives, for instance, resources, half a person, etc., they remain observers. So probably you will be aligned to CERN, something like that. It's the charter is open, but there is some practice in it. I mean, that's what you feel.
The only thing I want to mention, of course, DESY does not stand only for the interests of DESY. It stands not only for the interests of Helmholtz, and it would be for him and for me, but it stands, of course, for the interests also of Max Planck, of the universities, etc. So, but DESY is a legal entity, so we fulfill the conditions of the charter. And I think something similar could be possible here in Russia, that you delegate your responsibility to somebody, but this somebody cannot act for himself, but has to agree everything with the others.
That's what I meant. This is what I meant.
It's understood. Any more questions? Yes. If not,
Then I will finish. I will not explain you the French.
thank you so. Thank you very much. Now.